Hi, I know I'm live now, and if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to invite the very wonderful and very knowledgeable Jonathan Handford to join me so that we. Meanwhile, I wait for him. I have invited him. Once he's here, we can get on with the questions that I have. I've actually got 5 questions from you, so I'm looking forward to it. And now is a waiting game whilst Instagram connects us. So just to let you know, the property market is a little bit slower than it has been over the last few years. We're back to a normal market, so the 2017, 18, 19 markets that we've had before. And it will take a little bit longer and it will take a little bit more marketing in order to get your property on the market. So I've just invited Jon to join me, and here he is. Hi, Jon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Morning, Joe.
I've just been chatting to my audience, if anybody is there, so it's just saying that the market has now returned to what we call a normal market of 2017, 18 and 19. No longer are we taking busloads of viewers to a house and getting people bidding ridiculous amounts. We've now got to work a little bit harder and houses are staying on the market a little bit longer.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed. I have some questions about selling, which we from some people from my Instagram followers for you. I know you've seen them, so shall we get going?
Certainly, happy to help.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So from someone called A Little Foodie, she's asked, would love to know what you think the property market is going to do over the next 6 months and when would be the best time to sell?
Great question, and one that I'm frequently asked when I'm on the road and meeting people and at dinner parties and talking to friends and family. The honest answer is no one knows. You know, there are so many factors and variables that are going to influence the housing market. China could invade Taiwan tomorrow. The Ukraine situation could get darker and deeper and more, which is going to have a negative effect. In the UK, we're intrinsically linked to the Federal Reserve and what they choose to do with their base rate. You know, and all of those things are going to have a factor. So anyone that says that they know what's going to happen with house prices, they're either misinformed or making it up. No, I contribute to the Bank of England with feedback on the housing market and its housing policy. I go to their inflation briefings, and their inflation briefings, they put a big chart up on the PowerPoint, and it shows this fan of possibilities. And look, I mean, it's 60% from the top to the bottom. And I always have a laugh and a joke with the governor and say, just say that you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one really knows, if the truth be known. I think transactions, you know, if we were going to make an educated guess, transactions are going to be down on 2021 and 2022. Probably going to stabilise because one of the underpinning factors of the housing market is this isn't purely an investment-based market. It's a critical thing. Housing is essential. People need to live. There is always going to be death, divorce, debt dependent, together, relocating because of work. So as a result, you're always going to have that traffic in the marketplace. I think activity might be suppressed as a result of the cost of living crisis, which is going to hit people's affordability. But on that same token, that can also be a catalyst for people having to sell because they reduce their outgoings, which then creates more activity within the market space. So
answering the question, when would be a good time to sell?
When you need to move.
When you need to move. You know,
if you're buying and selling in the same market, it's going to be relative anyway. You know, you are going to be buying, so everything ebbs and flows in the same capacity. If you're just selling and you want to time the peak of the market, the only time that you know that it's hit the peak is when you're looking at it in what's happened in previous graphs and what's happened in the past. So that's the equivalent of driving your car by blacking out your windscreen and only looking at the mirrors, because you're only ever going to see what's behind you. So you're never going to see in front of you. It's pointless trying to second guess it.
Yeah,
if you,
I think everybody would love to sell high and buy low, wouldn't they?
yeah,
Not the other way around. Not the other way.
agreed. And also, I think trying to time it, and get it absolutely perfect. If you need to buy. If you need to sell.
Yeah.
I think so many people get it wrong where they just sit tight and wait.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree with you. So Edward Taylor asks, what are the qualities you should be looking for when you appoint an agent? Plenty that look and sound the same out there.
Yeah, look, it's a good point. And how do you pick your agent? You pick the red one, the blue one, the green one. Just upon the colour that you like.
Yeah.
The finding philosophy is built on 3 principles: how you present your property and expose it to the global marketplace, and then also your service in terms of how you deal with leads and inquiries, and you deal with people. And I think you've got to capture the property at its absolute best, and be that with staging, professional photography, with the description. It's got to really appeal to a buyer. And you can cut corners and do it, but actually, you're going to be doing an injustice to the property. You want it to look its absolute best. And then in terms of the exposure, I think there is this common misconception that, and maybe most agents do, just stick it on a portal and pray and hope and wait for leads to come through. But actually, there's so many more things that you can do to draw people in. Use property portals, social media. You can use newsletter campaigns, proper brochures, postcards that are delivered to neighbouring properties. There's a whole list of things that you can go and almost tick through for each and every property that you deal with. And then I think the service. The capability of the agent handling the inquiries, meeting people, doing viewings. And I will always say that the ambassador that you pick to sell your property almost has to develop a museum curator level of knowledge about the house. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who said that they booted an agent out because they sent a viewer who wasn't even aware of the fact that a public footpath ran through the garden. And if that person's commanding and doing viewings, you're going to encounter problems at a later date because they have full knowledge of what the property offers. So it's presentation, it's exposure, and it's service.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Emmanuel Lafitte asks, how do you know what the asking price should be?
Okay, and again, great question. And price is such a subjective thing. Buyers want as low as possible, sellers want it as high as possible. An agent's job is to bridge the gap in between the two whilst always representing their client. Putting housing aside for a second and looking at how you determine the value of anything, you will have a budget in mind, and then you will look at what you can buy for that budget, and then you will compare products or services against each other to determine what represents good value for money. And that is no different to what a buyer would do when looking to buy a house, and that's how you should look at your property. You'll have an idea and an interpretation, but whatever that be, and let's round up a figure and say it's £1 million, look with the local vicinity, what can £1 million get you? And a seller will always look at it through the lens of, but ours has got these special taps and we put these extra plug sockets in. But again, your reality is buyers are going to be looking for size, condition, location, aspect, environmental factors, those sorts of things. So, I think comparison-based research is always the way to be able to find out where the property sits. And, there are so many houses that you see reduced drastically in order to get a result, but there are also so many that I see that sell well above the guide. I know of one that sold for 6 million recently that was priced at offers over 4.5.
Wow.
So
that goes back to the sort of, there are 3 prices, aren't there? There's the market value, there's the asking price, and then there's the sale price.
Yes.
And so going back to what the asking price should be, on just what you said, you guide offers in excess of a guide price of 4.5 to get 6. Should the asking price be slightly less than we think the market value is?
Well, look, a vendor will always want to try and build a buffer into their pricing strategy. Me, I don't think that's a good strategy. I think all that you will be is a reason for people to buy another property, because they will look at yours, see what it is, and then something more affordable, and that will represent better value for money for them. So you could find yourself falling into this trap where you're just used as leverage to buy another property. So I think the closer you are to market value and the sale price, better. And there aren't any examples that I know of where people get ridiculous prices above, because buyers are pretty wise to it. And these days there is so much information that is available within the local within the internet. It's easy for people to check and compare. So I'm not going to pull all over anyone's eyes, I'm afraid. You've got to be as close to market value as possible to have a sensible shot at it.
And if not slightly below market value, in order to create the competition and the bidding war that we all want.
Yeah, you definitely, almost that auction type mentality. And I don't think you need to go ridiculously low. And you've got to be careful, because you step into the realms of consumer protection regs where you're disingenuous pricing strategy. But I would say that the same argument could be said for pricing way too high. So if anything, an offers over strategy is okay if it's just below market value, and then let the market bid it out and get the price where it needs to be. But, and I must stress, this is where the service-based selection of your agent comes into force. You pick an agent that sells it to the first person that sees it. Now that's good, because there's somebody there that's prepared to pay more money. And obviously the agent's mandate is to get the best possible result for the seller. That's what they're paid to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got a question. It's at what point? So when we put a house, we get a house under offer, and we are asked by our buyers to mark it as sold or under offer, sold subject to contract. So that kind of closes down any other buyers for our sellers. But the buyers are still getting alerted by Rightmove and Zoopla and Prime Locations, so they've got all the other properties coming at the market. But when would you recommend that you mark your house as under offer?
Look, and again, it's a great question. And actually, the Ombudsman touch upon this within their code of conduct rules, and the actual terminology is continuation of marketing. And he's going to want it removed from the market, and he's going to want it kept on the market. Now, you're absolutely right. Up until exchange of contracts, anybody could walk away from the deal. Potentially, a vendor could have got into bed for 3 months with a buyer, only for them to walk away and to obviously leave them high and dry where they've had no lead to inquiry. So the policy that we go through, and we do this on a case-by-case basis, because there are some examples where a buyer will make an offer subject to it being removed from the market, and ultimately we're not decision makers. That's down to the vendors as well. But as a rule of thumb, we will leave the property on the market after we've agreed a sale in principle, until the buyer is committed by having the survey done, they've paid for searches, they've instructed solicitors, they've filled out their welcome packs, got skin in the game. Now that can take anything from 24 hours to 4 weeks for all of those things to happen. Now, if it takes 4 weeks, we will say to the buyer, we are going to stop viewings because we appreciate that you're going to be setting the wheels in motion, but we are still going to capture any inquiries. So in the event that we hit an obstacle, we've got a parachute to fall back upon. So you can shop us if you need to, because I promise you we'll stop doing viewings, but we will capture people's details. But if you encounter a problem, you've got that contingency to revert to.
Definitely. Okay, fair enough. Which actually, I forgot one of the questions, which is from Polished 2022, which covers the next, which actually links quite well to the question I've just asked. What do you need to get ready in order to, what do I need to do to get ready in order to sell my home? And that is also not just prepping it into making it tidy, but also the legals as well, in which case then things can move quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. The legal system in the UK is based upon a Latin principle called caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. So the vast majority of stuff that you do once you agree a sale happens after the point of agreeing a sale, which is because at that point, everyone starts to lose momentum, things drag on. So I always say to a seller, prior to putting your property onto the market, get an exchange-ready draft contract. All your TA forms filled out, your seller's property information form, your fixtures and fittings, go through all your ID checks, get the welcome letters and the pack set up so that your solicitor has an exchange-ready draft contract that on the day you agree the sale, they can send to the buyer's solicitor. Now, until the buyer's solicitor receives that pack, they, I mean, absolutely nothing. They will not do anything. So there are instances where a sale has been agreed for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and a buyer's solicitor has not done one iota of work because they can't relay. They need that draft contract in order to be able to start it. So cost you any more to get this done in advance of putting your house on the market, because you're going to have to do it anyway. So it does give you best practice. And we've got many sales that we get through in less than a month. And the average is well over 100 days. And we get them through in a month because we've done the vast majority of the legal work in advance of putting the house on. Therefore, you only then need to get your survey and your searches done. And the other beauty of tackling it in this order is if there are warts and all, if there are any obstacles, you become aware about them early in the process and you can communicate effectively. Give you a tangible example. There's a lady that I'm talking to who's going to come and join our Cheltenham team, and she's just relocated from Australia. She's in the process of buying a property, a garden apartment in the centre of Cheltenham. Last night she sent me a link to the property. She also sent me some questions from a conveyancer. Transpires this garden apartment isn't a garden apartment at all because the garden isn't on the title. Now, they've gone through the money. I've got the agent's advert and they've referenced garden apartment 4 times in writing and once with photographs. It's not a garden at all. So that sale's not going to proceed. Now, either the vendor has been disingenuous, the estate agent hasn't done their checks, but either way, everyone's wasted a load of time and energy.
And that's basic. That's on the title as well, isn't it? It's not exactly difficult to see.
But most agents don't do this and most vendors don't do it. And actually, you know, a little bit of due diligence at the start of the process will save you a lot of time and energy, because no one wins from this. That sale's not, no one in their mind's going to take a view on that. It's a fundamentally different package what the buyer to buy. So, you know, and I argue that the buyer has got a right to go back to both the vendor and the agent there and say, oh, I want my out-of-pocket expenses back, so I've spent a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incorrect. So, you know, you're right, staging a property and getting it all dressed and looking its absolute best is one thing, but the other thing that I'd recommend is getting the legals sorted. And
behind the scenes, with all the paperwork and all your certificates and your fence documents and your building regs and everything else is done. There's nothing. Is there anything we can do to hurry up our buyers on that one?
To hurry up the buyers. So look, I think when you agree a sale, agents get a bit giddy. You know, we're all guilty of it. You know, we're really pleased. We're happy for the buyer. Everyone's excited. But actually, that's your last chance to influence the direction of the sale. So I think a conditional acceptance of an offer is absolutely fine. And there are many instances where I've said the vendor will accept your offer based upon these principles. Principle 1, you have to have instructed your solicitors within 24 hours. Principle 2, if you need a mortgage, you need to have submitted your mortgage application, and I will even specify the date. If you need a valuation or a survey, it needs to be conducted by these times. So you go back with a conditional acceptance of the offer with some milestones and some performance guidelines, rather than this big open-handed transaction that can take as long as it needs. You know, buyers, you know, if you're out there looking, get your ducks in order. Rather than squirrels at a rave. It needs to be methodical. You need to have your solicitor in place ready. You need to have your agreement in principle. You need to have your deposit, your proof of funds, all of those things. So if you see something and you're in competition with another buyer, you can effectively package it all for the agent and for the vendor and say, here is everything. They are going to take your offer way more seriously. If an agent spend 10 days chasing you for all of these things, your credibility is going to nosedive. So you've got to get these things in order anyway, get it done now. And there isn't an agent worth their weight in salt that's not going to do those checks on you, because it's a legal requirement from HMRC. So you might not have had to have done it the last time that you bought a house, but I absolutely guarantee you're going to have to now.
Jump through hoops. Jon, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. That's been 20 minutes of solid gold information. Really appreciate your time on this one. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thank you for having me, and good luck with the series. we'll catch up soon. I'll see you in
Yeah, see you soon. Okay, bye.
Cheers, bye.